Good morning, everyone. I hope you are having a great Monday, and I am super excited to be here this morning to share with you a topic that is pretty near and dear to my heart. So welcome. This topic this morning is about roadblocks, which we all face whether we're starting a new business or not. But I think that the new entrepreneur, someone just starting their business out, really has the most roadblocks ever. And so I want to talk about those today, because if we don't talk about them, we just ignore them or avoid them, and they tend to just get larger in our lives. So I'm Sarah. I'm a startup coach. I help business owners who want to build a business get their foundation right from the start so that you can see more momentum in your business faster because you're doing the right work at the right time. And I love helping people be able to do that. You can avoid the mistakes that I made along the way by learning from me, and you'll have more success sooner. If you're watching this live, welcome. And if you're watching this in the future, welcome to you too. And I want to encourage you, if you missed my Facebook Live last week, to go into the guide section of my Facebook group and watch that. That will help you get your 90-day sprint set up, which I'll be referring to today while we talk. So today I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to talk fast. There's 4 main topics that we're going to cover. Why identifying roadblocks actually creates more success for you, how to identify your roadblocks, and then once you've identified them, how do we help overcome them? And then real briefly at the end, we'll cover why this is important when you're building a business to do this very foundational work. When we're building a business, we are going to face roadblocks along the way. Like, that is just a given. I have not met a single person who has not had problems and challenges and roadblocks in their business startup. And it feels like we face them at a high rate at this startup time. It's because you're doing something new. These roadblocks can be anything from getting stuck because you don't know what to name your business. So you stay stuck in this time where it's like, I'm just trying to come up with the right name for my business, but then you've lost weeks or months because you haven't been able to move forward. That literally creates a block in your road to success. Maybe another roadblock that you face is that you don't have enough cash. You don't have enough capital to keep your business going. You don't know how to manage that. That can be a real roadblock. You might have technology issues. I'm going to talk about how I faced that in my business building journey. You might also be facing decision fatigue, that when you're building a business, it's kind of like building a house or doing anything new for the first time. There's just a lot of decisions that have to be made. And oftentimes those decisions can be a real roadblock to us. And we face these day in and day out. I believe that it is very important and an integral part of your success for the long term to deal with the idea of roadblocks and face them head on, instead of either pretending that they don't exist or simply ignoring that they're impacting us. When we don't name that, then it rules and reigns over our lives in ways that we don't even realize, even at a subconscious level. And as a Christian, I believe that we need to name those things. It's not name it and claim it and prosperity. If I name it, then it's going to go away. But naming and identifying it helps us be able to deal with it in our lives. So let's start with the first bullet point here. Why identifying roadblocks actually creates success. First of all, let's talk about why we want to do this. Why we want to peel back these layers of the roadblocks that we're facing. Because sometimes I feel like when we start to peel back these layers, it actually feels like failure, and nobody wants to dig into failure. It's not necessarily fun work, but the reality is that naming our roadblocks actually creates success. Because if you define failure as simply not learning from your past mistakes, then if you don't do this work, it really is a failure. But when you peel it back and name it and understand where these roadblocks are coming from, that is success and will create more success for you. Because success isn't a destination. For a long time, I always thought it was like when I would run a race. I was a runner for a while. And when I would run a race, I thought success was finishing the finish line, crossing that finish line. But that's not really what success is. Success is really a progression of getting better at something. And there's not really, I mean, sometimes there is like this finish line. Maybe you launch a course or you complete a task and there's success, but then there's always something more to do. It's this progression of slowly getting better and seeing accomplishments in your business or towards your goal. It's also this process of being a business owner is becoming the type of person who is able to have a successful business. And when we uncover these roadblocks, it helps us to really become the kind of person we need to be that we weren't before, but we're on our way to becoming in the future so that we can have a successful business. We learn how to deal with roadblocks because that is part of our success. When we identify roadblocks, it creates success because naming the types of roadblocks we face frees up brain space. We don't even realize that in our brain, space is being taken up by these roadblocks. And I'm going to talk about the different types of roadblocks in a little bit, but we get stuck and we have all this brain space, which we know is at like a premium right now. When we let roadblocks clutter that up, we're using up space that could be used for things like creativity or content creation or managing our household better or managing our time better. We get stuck in decision fatigue or analysis paralysis or the exhausting cycle of feeling like we need a win but always feeling like we're losing. And if we name those roadblocks and we name those frustration, it frees up that brain space. So now we can actually solve the problem instead of just kind of letting it ruminate in our brains. Now, I will say a word of caution about this. It has to be a healthy process that you use to identify your roadblocks. This isn't about complaining, and it's not about being the victim of like, woe is me, look at all this hard stuff that I have to face as a new business owner. We all do. And the difference between those who actually see success and those who don't are the ones who identify these roadblocks versus those who just feel sorry and wallow in pity, self-pity about them. So you have to be careful about that. The other thing that I would give a word of caution about, which I have found I have done in my own family life, is it's very easy to start speaking these things over ourselves, and then they're like self-prophesying, right? Like, let's say you're going to go out for a weekend away with some girlfriends or with your husband, and like immediately the first thing that happens is you go out to the car to leave and there's a flat tire. Well, there's two ways to go about this. One is, okay, this is a setback. We're going to fix the tire and then we're going to get going. I'm not going to let it ruin my whole weekend. Or you can start speaking over the whole weekend that it's going to be a disaster. This is going to be terrible. Everything's going to go wrong. And guess what? It probably is because you are speaking that over this fun weekend that you had planned. So you have to be careful about identifying versus speaking it over you and making it true, or being the victim, because one is healthy and one is not. So you want to be careful to how you're naming them and how you're working through that. Simply naming and identifying the types of roadblocks you face makes you aware of them so that you can name them, and then ultimately you can choose a strategy to help combat those roadblocks. So for example, for me, I faced a lot of tech issues when I first started my business a couple of years ago. I mean, every turn that I made, it was my website wouldn't work, or I would get help from my web host, but what he said to do didn't work, and then it would just be hours and hours of me spinning my wheels, and literally the phrase I kept using is, I just can't win, I can't win, I can't win. And I just kept speaking that over me, and I kept stuck in this frustration. But finally, at some point, I was able to identify that technology is not my area of expertise. I don't know that much about technology. I've never built a website before. And so I had to decide, am I going to spend my time and energy learning that technology and filling in that knowledge gap, or was I going to pay someone else to do it? And in the end, I decided I was going to do a little mix of both. I was going to learn enough so I knew how to do it, but I was going to also pay for a theme on my website so I didn't have to build it from scratch. So naming that roadblock was really the biggest difference between staying stuck in a technology like hellhole, really, and being able to make some progress. The other thing that I talked about in last week's Facebook Live is that your brain is designed to keep you safe. And it is much safer for your brain, in your brain's mind, to keep you stuck. It wants to stay in status quo because it knows how to operate in that status quo, even if that status quo is in a roadblock, frustrating experience. So your brain is literally designed, I'm going to keep you safe here. It's hardwired to keep life simple and easy, the old way. So when you face any resistance, like the technology doesn't work, or I don't know how to manage my money, or I don't know how to manage my time, your brain will keep reminding you, I told you so, I knew that, I warned you, we're just going to stay here in this situation. I was reminded of this a few weeks ago when I was reading the book of Numbers. I know, kind of a random book, but it's a great book of the Bible. I would highly recommend you read it, where the Israelites know that God has promised them the promised land, this good land, literally flowing with milk and honey. And so Moses sends out 12 spies to just spy out the land to decide which way to get into this new land. Well, 10 of the spies come back and are like, we shouldn't go at all. It's too scary. There's these huge giants of people that live there. There's walls, there's bars on the walls, windows. We can't do it at all. And there were 2 men, Joshua and Caleb, who said, hey, God already promised us this land, so let's go and do it. Those 10 people, their brains were like, this is too scary, this is too dangerous. Even though God, the God of the universe, promised we were going to take that land, let's just stay where we are, even though where they were was miserable in the desert. And only 2 of them said, let's go and do it. So our brains really do hold us back. Our current thinking prevents us from being able to move forward. And so we want to be able to overcome that by naming these roadblocks. We know we're afraid and we're going to do it anyway. I have a saying in my life, if you know me very well, that they're called the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. And I believe that phrase really applies here, because when we properly prepare ahead of time, then these roadblocks that we face aren't going to be so much of a surprise for us, and we already have a plan to attack them. We can't necessarily anticipate every problem that we're going to face, but we can be the type of person who is prepared to face roadblocks instead of being the type of person that's always surprised and scared, and like any kind of roadblock, ruins our whole day. We can use those 6 Ps, proper prior preparation prevents poor performance, to help us anticipate a little bit what those roadblocks might be. And we build up in our mind, we give our mind evidence that we are the kind of person who can overcome those roadblocks. We proved our mind wrong, that we actually have the agency to overcome these roadblocks. Ultimately, when we're prepared for roadblocks, we can maneuver around the roadblock or over it or through it more quickly and easily, which frees us up to do the work that we need to do. So we know how to deal with those. A quick note about roadblocks that I'm not going to necessarily address today, but I will in a future video, is that the roadblock is really never about the roadblock itself. For me, it wasn't really about technology not going well. Ultimately, the roadblock for me was that I like to be in control, and that I like to know how to do all the things I need to do, and I couldn't do that at the beginning of my business because I just simply didn't know enough about technology. So my encouragement to you is to oftentimes ask yourself, okay, so I'm facing this roadblock about technology today that's really like putting me off and like really disrupting my whole day. What is it really about? Is it really more about control? Is it really more about past experiences that are like influencing me right now? And so if you can really dig down into what that roadblock really is about, that will help you even more. Ultimately, the goal in our business is to remove the friction that we have between where we are now and where we want to go in the future. And roadblocks are a form of friction. And whenever we can kind of eliminate it and make it more of a smooth sailing road, then we're going to have more success in our business. So now we know why we want to identify these roadblocks. How do we do that? Well, one way that I have found is we can look to others. We can see people who are 2 or 3 steps ahead of us in our business or in our progress. I do this with parenting. Like, I want to be friends with people who have high schoolers because I have middle schoolers. They're a little bit ahead of me. They can tell me what roadblocks are coming, what problems I might face. Again, I'm not letting it be spoken over me to make me live in fear. I'm letting them give me some advice so that I can talk about it and think about it and be prepared for it. You can also look to your past. Where in your past have you struggled or had roadblocks? How did you face them? How did you overcome them? What happens when you have to do something hard or when you have to do something new? When you can really look to your past and see your past performance, it can help you prepare for and predict your future performance so you can make some changes. Another piece of advice that I have is to look to your past of where you've had success. When have things gone well? When have you been like really fruitful in work? Even if it wasn't in building your business, but it was in something else. Where did you have success? Why? Why did you have success? What factors led to you having success? And could I repeat those as I'm facing some roadblocks in this new endeavor? The other thing I want to encourage you with is I think that roadblocks fall into 3 main categories. And if after you listen to these 3 categories, you think that I've missed one, I'd love to hear that. So drop that in the comments below. So here are 3 categories I've identified. They're pretty broad as I've identified own roadblocks in my life. One is a knowledge deficit. When I finally am able to identify that the roadblock I'm facing is simply a knowledge deficit, then it's much easier to make a plan to overcome that. This is when you don't know how to do a task. I didn't know how to set up a website. I thought it can't be that hard. I'll just give it a try. But I really probably needed to take a class or watch some more webinars or watch some more YouTube videos to learn what I was doing before I dove in. That's a knowledge deficit. A knowledge deficit can also look like I sit down at my computer when I have set aside work time and I just simply don't know what to be working on right now. That's also can be a knowledge deficit. I simply don't know what next step to take in my business. Another roadblock that you can face, I call resource management. This can be managing your time, your money, your energy, anything that you have that's an asset to your business and you don't know how to manage it. And that can be that you have too little of that. You don't have enough time and you don't know how to manage it because you feel this pressure all the time. I don't have enough time. Or it can honestly be that you have too much time, that maybe you set aside 3 hours to work on something today, and so you putz around and do lots of little things that aren't actually helping your business because you have too much time for the task. And so that's about resource management. Another major category that oftentimes goes overlooked in roadblocks are either unhealthy emotional states that you're currently in or unhealthy emotional beliefs that you hold that are holding you back. You might not like some of these. I've had to really uncover and dig in, and I've actually hired a coach to help me uncover some of these things for myself. But here are some of them, and it's time to really get honest about them because you're going to take these roadblocks with you into your new business, and you won't be able to serve your clients well or set up your business for good success if you don't address these roadblocks. Here are some. Maybe you are a procrastinator, and that's really an unhealthy belief that you have about yourself and about getting work done. Maybe you have some relational conflict with maybe a business partner or someone else in your life, and that relational conflict, you don't realize that the tension that you're feeling about it is really boiling over into your business. Maybe it's that you really have never had to persevere or persist in something before, and now that you're facing kind of resistance in your business, getting it set up, you don't have that personality trait to really dig in and keep going even as you face roadblocks. You may be quitting when things get tough. That might be a pattern that you have in the past, and now that you're facing it in your new business, you don't know how to overcome it. Not learning from past mistakes, I think truly that is the definition of failure. And so how do you address that unhealthy emotional belief? Maybe you are a rationalizer. You just like to justify things and rationalize them away. Maybe a big one that I've seen for a lot of people is having a poverty mindset, always believing there's never enough, there's not going to be enough. If other people get it, then I'm never going to get it because there isn't plenty. That can really be a big one that holds you back. And then another one that I've really identified in my own life is when I have had prior experiences around a certain type of roadblock or prior disappointments around it, it really holds me back. So for example, when I had one bad experience with technology and then another bad experience, now like 2 years later, I can let those bad experiences from 2 years ago influence me when I sit down to do something on my website now. I feel that rush of disappointment and frustration and anger come over me, and I have to remind myself, no, that's just a roadblock that I can overcome by saying, this is a new day, I know more now, I can do more research if I get frustrated, and I can overcome this roadblock. So we allow those unhealthy emotional beliefs to influence us. The other thing that I find is that a lot of people try and sit down to do work on their business, which is already hard, when they're tired or frustrated about something else. And then they sit down to do work on their business and they're like, I'm so tired. I can't even think straight. Okay, that's a roadblock. It's time to get up from your computer, go for a little walk, take a little rest, take that day off so that when you do sit down to do work, being tired and exhausted from everyday life isn't coming into your business. That's a boundary you want to put up and a practice you want to have in your business so that you're giving your best to this new work that you're trying to do. So I want to give you really quickly a few examples from each category. So let's go with the knowledge deficit, the first one. Let's say you're a super creative person and you are an artist, or maybe you're a graphic designer. So sitting down to create a logo and a branding kit for your business is super easy. Like there's no problem with that. But then when you go to sit down to create your course that you want to sell, you have no idea how to teach it. You have no idea how to put it in a logical format. That's a knowledge deficit. It's not that you're dumb or that you just, can't do it. It's that you don't know how. You've never had to do that type of work before, and you need to learn and maybe take a course or a class about how to create a class so that you can be successful with it and you're not just banging your head against the wall trying to figure it out for 6 months at a time. If you paid and took a course for 6 weeks, you could get so much done faster because now you actually have filled in that knowledge deficit. Another knowledge deficit that you might have is that you don't know how to organize your week with a clear plan, or maybe you don't know how to set long-term goals that actually drive you forward in your business. That is simply a knowledge deficit that you have. And again, when you can identify, hey, it's just that I don't know how to do this, then you can make a plan. Hey, I'm going to talk to Sarah and find out how I can create this in my own life, and then see success faster because now you're doing the work instead of just trying to struggle through learning how to do that work. So let's talk resource management. This is a real common one that I see with new business owners too. Let's go with that same example I used for knowledge deficit. Let's say you're a creative person. You're sitting down to write your course. You filled in that knowledge gap because you took a class on how to write a course. Maybe you got a coach or a mentor to help you walk through that process. But now you sit down and you find that you don't know how to manage your time in order to create that course. You're all over the place. You're doing this, and then you're doing this, and then you're doing this. Well, that is now going to be a resource management issue of I don't know how to manage my time to get this work done. Another example along that line is, let's say you know you need to take a course to learn how to create this program in your own business. So you go the cheap route and you get this freebie and you get this discounted course and then you get this freebie and then you're on this person's mailing list. Now you've got 50 resources for one problem and you don't know how to manage all those materials. That is a common problem I see with people, is they're so addicted to getting freebies that they don't know then how to use that information to actually move forward. And oftentimes freebies and things that you can get free on the internet isn't enough information to actually help you learn how to do that. So that's resource management. Using my technology example, when I finally realized it was a knowledge deficit, I realized I wanted to pay someone else to do some of that work for me. Well, if I didn't know how to manage my resources, I could maybe start paying someone so much money to run my website and my technology that I'm now spending more money than I'm bringing in. Well, that's resource management. I'm not managing my money and my finances well in my business to actually have a successful business. All right, let's talk about unhealthy and emotional states and beliefs. If you have a belief that your value as a person is tied to money, and I make money by doing hard work, but now you're working hard in this business and you're not bringing any money, then the loop that's going to go in your mind is that you're not valuable because you're not bringing any money in. And that loop can really be a roadblock for you in building a business. It prevents you from actually making the money that you need. And so you need to work on that belief to be able to move forward in your business. For me, another unhealthy belief that I had about the technology is I let my prior experiences and disappointments to keep me from moving forward in technology because I allowed the narrative in my brain to be, you can't actually do this. And I had to really break that roadblock in order to make some good decisions about technology and be able to move forward with that. Another unhealthy belief you have is that I have to work 24/7 in my business no matter what, whether I'm exhausted or not. Well, that's really not going to get you anywhere. If you've tried to make decisions while you're exhausted, you most likely didn't make a good one. So you need to break that unhealthy belief of I have to work all the time in order to make this work. A lot of times, so those are the three big categories. If you have some other categories that you find roadblocks fall under, I'd love to hear those, and hopefully those examples will help you. Now, a lot of times I'll hear an excuse that people will just say, well, I'm just not confident, and that's my roadblock. But the reason that you aren't confident is because that at least one of these three areas is low or unbalanced in your life. And when you can start to identify which one it is, knowledge deficit, resource management, or these unhealthy emotional states or beliefs, then you can actually create a plan to mitigate those and mitigate the deficiency, and you will automatically feel more confidence. So when I identified that technology is not my area of expertise, I haven't done it before, I haven't learned enough about it, I immediately felt more confident. It was like this confession of, oh yeah, I'm not a tech expert. I don't really want to be a tech expert in my business. I want to be able to make enough money to pay someone else to do that. It immediately freed up negative brain space. It made me feel more confident that now I have a plan that I'm working towards to overcome this roadblock. So sometimes you don't have confidence because you haven't actually dealt with the real roadblock that you're facing. And I want to also warn that identifying your roadblocks doesn't happen in the moment that you're having the roadblock. Because if you're anything like me, the roadblock really can set you off and make you angry or frustrated, and you're not doing really clear thinking in that moment. So identifying the roadblocks and using those three categories to help you happens when you pause later and reflect and go back and think about what happened, why did it happen, how was I feeling in that moment, what was I doing, what was I thinking. Sometimes you need a thought partner to help you be able to realize that, because sometimes when something's right in front of your face, you can't easily identify it. But you want to think about it after it happens, not like, oh, I'm frustrated and angry and I'm about to pull my hair out. Now's a good time to stop and identify the roadblock. That probably isn't. Put it on your page for tomorrow to look back and think about it. See if you can put your roadblock into one of those three categories. Talk to a friend if you need help processing. You could just keep it on a list for a week or two. You might be so frustrated or angry about that roadblock that you can't actually have good productive thinking about it until a couple of weeks from now. And then you could set aside some time on a day that you know is a good day for you. You're well rested. Maybe you've had some coffee, you've had a good lunch, and you could think about what roadblocks do you face more frequently? which ones tend to throw you for the biggest loop, and which ones are you able to overcome more easily, and use some of those strategies to help you with the ones that really throw you for a loop. So now let's go through quickly how to overcome these roadblocks that you've now identified. Once you identify them, you can address them more easily. So for a knowledge deficit, I simply need to learn something new. I need to set aside some time to either purchase a course or go on YouTube or meet with a friend. My husband's working on this big web development project at work, and he just has hit a roadblock that he can't overcome. He doesn't have that type of knowledge. It's not the typical work that he does. He asked a friend, and now they're texting about it, and they're going to get together, and this friend has given him new momentum to be able to move forward in that. So when you have a knowledge deficit, it's about, I need to learn something new. Resource manager. If you find that your roadblock is in this category, then you need to become a better manager of the resources you have. Instead of saying, well, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't know how to do this, then you need to be a better manager of the resources that you do have, because you're not going to create more money in your business by complaining about it. For your unhealthy emotional state or belief, then you need to address some of these before you can really move forward. Now you know the type of work that you need to do because you've put them in these categories. And you can create your own mini action plan for each of these categories, so whenever you face any issue in that category, you've already got a little plan to be able to address it, and you can actually move past it. And that's where that proper prior preparation prevents poor performance comes in. When I know that I have a knowledge deficit and it really throws me for a loop, I've already set aside some money. I'm being a good resource manager in my business so that I can pay to purchase a course from someone who does know how to do that. That's my mini action plan. You can leverage what you already do well to help you overcome your deficit. I am a good learner. I could watch YouTube videos like all day long and take notes. I love podcasts. If you ever need a podcast recommendation, like I listen to them all the time. I love learning. So how can I use that skill that I have, that love of learning, to help me in the other areas? And make up some of the deficits I have in the other areas. So think about what your skills are that you have that you can leverage to be able to overcome these roadblocks. I want you to also be really realistic about your roadblocks. Some of them are just going to throw you for a loop, and it's time to shut the computer down and just take a break. And other times it's time for you to really dig in and to be a little bit stubborn about it and overcome it. So be really realistic about your roadblocks. And then remember, maybe put a sticky note next to your computer that when you name these roadblocks, it gives you the power back. It removes that loop in your mind that says you can't actually do this, this is too big to overcome, and it gives you the power back so that you can create action steps and you can kind of blow the whistle and say, time out. I'm actually in control, not my fear, not my brain, not all of the negative things that I've thought in the past. I'm in control and I can make the decisions that I need to make. And then my biggest encouragement too is to ask others for help. You cannot build a business alone. I guess you could, but it's going to be a really frustrating, long, drawn out experience and very lonely. And so find some people that you can ask for help. Maybe it's someone who doesn't even really know what you're going through, but you just need a cheerleader and an encourager. You can do this, like let's figure it out. So find those people that can help you. So why is all of this important for you in your business as we wrap up here? In your business, when you can remove or eliminate roadblocks, you will see success faster in your business. I've experienced this myself when I've actually dug down and dealt with the root of the issue, the deeper part of the roadblock. It immediately has freed me up to have more success faster. You also, when you do this work, you become the type of person who overcomes challenges, and you know you're going to have them in your business. So you may as well start overcoming them now and be the type of person that, yeah, when a problem comes, yep, we face it. I've got a team of people that helps me. I've got support people. I can call my mom and she gives me a pep talk or whatever. You've already got that in place. You become that type of person. It helps you move past roadblocks in the future faster, which is always good. And instead of dreading the setbacks and the roadblocks that you face, you can leave that behind because you have evidence that you're able to overcome roadblocks. And if you need to kind of prove that to your brain, you can actually keep a list, an evidence list that, hey, when roadblocks come, I am able to overcome this no matter what my brain tries to lie to me and tell me. And in your business, when you can remove these roadblocks, ultimately, the ultimate goal is you can have success faster and you can feel much better about it. So if you have questions about this, you can drop them in the comments. I'd love to be able to answer those for you. If you'd like more information about an accountability partner or a coach to help you, I would also love to help you. This is exactly what I do in my business, is help people overcome these roadblocks. So if you're like, I love this work, I want to do this work, but I can't do it alone, then I'd love to be able to help you with that. And if this training was helpful to you today, I'd love for you to share it with other people. I will put it in the guide section on this Facebook page so that people can find it. The last thing that I want to tell you about is a book that I've been using that's been great for helping me overcome some of my roadblocks. And it's called The Prayer Powered Entrepreneur. And I'll put a link below if you'd like to order it from Amazon. But it's been a great 31-day challenge on how to pray in my business specifically and how to overcome some of these roadblocks that I faced. Join me here next week on Monday at 8 a.m. I'm going to be talking about how to define success and failure, which is oftentimes a roadblock that we face. Thank you so much and have a great week.